Hundreds of students have been arrested in the U.S. after nationwide protests over cuts in education funding turned violent. The demonstrators were angered at a steep hike in tuition fees and teachers being laid off, measures the government says are necessary to tackle the budget deficit. Anastasia Churkina has more.
Money for jobs and education, not for war and occupation.
Nerves are stretched to the limit. A wave of protests spread throughout the U.S.
Today, before me, teachers, students, parents, ordinary working people, beginning to fight back.
With more than 100 rallies in over 30 states, it was a real fight for education.
The cuts to the schools, the budget cuts, the raising of tuition, all the money that's being used for war, to bail out the banks, to do all sorts of ridiculous programs across the nation could be used for that education.
U.S. taxpayers' cash bailed out major corporations when they were on the brink of collapse. These same banks are now denying loans to students throughout the country. The same government who left the American taxpayer with no other choice but to foot the bill for the bank's bailout has now put in place draconian budget cuts. At the top of the list of those affected are schools and universities.
Like thousands of Americans across the United States, New Yorkers have come out onto the streets to express their outrage. What they want to know is when will the state and federal government stop taking away from the people and bail out the common American.
Today, 2/3 of U.S. students need to borrow money to pay for college. The debt load they are left with after graduating has skyrocketed in the last year.
Education is all I have. That's my pride.
In California, a state balancing on the brink of bankruptcy, the price of tuition has gone up by 33%.
Excuse me, officer, do you think you might have joined in the crowds if the police department's budget was cut?
No comment. No comment.
You wouldn't have?
No, I have no comment.
The students and teachers say they didn't create the crisis and shouldn't be the ones to pay. Meanwhile, bankers are back to enjoying record-high bonuses of hundreds of millions of dollars.
Never be defeated. The students united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
The younger generation refuses to have their thin pockets go completely empty because of the mistakes of those in power.
I think the crisis is the mistake of the bank analysts and how they planned it, and the crisis is the result of their bad planning. So we shouldn't be blamed for that, and we shouldn't suffer because of that.
Some of the students blame capitalism as a system.
We're not going to stop being oppressed as a class until the capitalism is overthrown.
People haven't been properly represented for so long. I don't think they will be within the realms of capitalism. We have to have a revolution to get out of it, and that revolution should start from the bottom up.
While education is supposed to be a way out of poverty, these students say they're being dragged into it. Right now, times for students are tough, and many fear things could get even worse after they graduate and have to march into the unknown. Anastasia Churkina, RT, New York.